before we start, let me start with one story. Since it is a pre-lunch session, you might be very hungry. You should not scold me. So there was two professors, husband and wife. They were keeping a cook to cook food for them. Okay, and these two professors are from microbiology background. Always they discuss after going back home also the things which has happened in and around the world. Okay, and there was a party in their house. Okay, and they were called more than 15 people to have a lunch at their home. Okay, and they bought nice dishes, and they also ordered the cook to prepare omelets. Okay, when a cook was they gave 20 eggs to put an omelette. What he was doing, he was doing first egg, he took it and put an omelette. Second egg, he took it and put an omelette. Third egg, he has put an omelette. And fourth egg, he dropped in the dustbin. Similarly, fifth egg he cooked, sixth, seventh he has cooked, eighth he has dropped in. The professors were worried, why is wasting those eggs? I don't know why. So he immediately went, because the rest of the eggs should be saved. So he went and asked, why you are doing so? Immediately the cook said, every fourth egg has a Salman Khan. You said Salman is there in the fourth egg. Why? What it is? How it can have a fourth egg as a Salman? He don't know. Then you and ma'am were discussing that fourth egg as a Salman. Then finally he realized that it is a Salmonella virus which creates a poison in the food preparing. So he has read an article about the egg that every fourth egg, 1 in 4 eggs as Salmonella virus which creates poisoning. So when we do our research, whatever we want, whoever the sample we involve in our study, then it is like this. Every fourth egg will be put it in the dustbin. Okay? So you have to choose a proper sampling technique to have your research come true. Next, the one question, is it possible to taste the whole of sambar and then add salt? No, definitely not. Is it possible to work out what 50 million people think by asking only 1,000? For me, it is yes. Because when we apply proper sampling technique, we can also come to a conclusion what 50 million people think. See, what exactly is the population? When we do till 10th standard, when we do a social studies subject, we might have had a population in a different angle, but as a researcher, population is nothing but the group of people according to our research objective, or we can say the totality or aggregate of all individuals with the specified characteristics. What is the specified characteristics? You have a topic like diabetes mellitus you are going to deal with, then you are going to have a people who are having, or you are going to give a drug intervention to those people who are having hypertension. Then you are going to pick up the hypertension people. So you have some research question, according to that you will act upon. All those patients with that specific characteristics are going to be called as population. And we have several populations. One is finite, infinite and hypothetical. Finite is nothing but a whole number, like number of people deceased. Like that we will be concluding. Infinite is like your HB values, your height, where all the decimal places plays an important role. And what is hypothetical population? Suppose I have invented a drug for cancer. Can I give it to all cancer patients? Can I give? Then what I will do? What is the first step in processing the drug? First we will be testing in the animals. Okay, guinea pigs we will be choosing and we will be doing that. Can I get a guinea pig which has cancer? Now what I will do? We will inject the carcinogens in the rats and we will try to form the diseased cancer. Then I will give the drug and I will, how effective my drug works, like that I will be testing. So here what we are doing, there is no such population existing already. Here we are creating a population that is, which is imaginary population, that is called as hypothetical population. Then what is a sample? A sample is nothing but a small group of persons which we are trying to have some measurements or some vital factors which is needed for the disease, and we are going to generalize to the whole population. Then what we can say it as? It is a subset of population. It is a subset of population. Then there are some terminologies involved in that. First question is, who do you want to generalize to? That is the motive. Whenever we do a research in a small group also, we want to generalize to a bigger group. For example, I wanted to do a study on hypertension among the children who is in the age group of 15 to 18 in the Tamil Nadu. I cannot go to each and every village or district because the cost factors involved, time factors involved. So what I will do, I will select some districts for my study. The first thing which I told is the Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is my theoretical population. From that, I have narrowed down 2 districts. That is nothing but your study population. From the study population, where I am going to study, where I can get children between 14 to 17, I can go very well to the schools of Tamil Nadu districts and I can get the information. So I have the, I will be having the list of children who are going to the school. So that is nothing but sampling frame. Sampling frame is nothing but list of units for your study. From that sampling frame with sampling techniques, I will be choosing a sample, a person or how many my sample size is there, that number I will take. That is nothing but my sample. I will do all my experiments in the sample. From the sample I will get some inferences. I wanted to generalize to whole of Tamil Nadu. This is my motive. So what is that? From the sample, from the theoretical population, we have narrowed down to sample. That is from Tamil Nadu we have chosen districts. From districts we have chosen schools, and from schools we have come to a sample. So what is our motive? We want to, from the sample, what we have conducted experiments, what we have gained conclusions from the sample, we are going to generalize to the whole of theoretical population. Then sampling fraction. Sampling fraction is nothing but sample size divided by population size. To some extent we need this, and it is also called as a sampling interval or a skip interval. Why we need a sample? When we take a sample, we should guarantee that that sample should be a representative sample for that particular group or to a specified characteristic, as I mentioned in the research topic. Sample should not reflect the study character of the population, and strength of statistical inference also depends on that representativeness, how you are going to choose your sample, and it also depends on how much confidence level you are going to keep for the population. And error is human. Similarly, we will be having random or sampling errors or systematic or non-sampling errors. As I have told, systematic is a bias. It might be a bias errors, and it is in our hands. When we want to control those errors, we can control over it, and random errors we cannot account for it. We cannot find where it has occurred, when it has occurred. So why sampling error occurs? We are trying to read a small group of people, and we are going to generalize to the whole people. So there might be some lack in that, because it is not an exact mirror image as the population. So whenever we have a sampling error, finally we will be giving a standard error which accounts for our sampling error. So I have a study done in the Tamil Nadu population by taking districts, and Karpaga Medical College, unknowingly my study, they also did a study, and similarly in Kerala they have studied the similar study, and they are going to generalize to the overall India. And when they have samples with different sizes of the same topic, and they were calculated mean in each group, Okay? Can you tell that all the means will be same, average of the same topic which is going to be carried out in India? Then how it is possible to generalize the whole thing? It is nothing but we are accounting for standard error. Standard error is nothing but the difference between the population mean and the sample mean. So simply you can remember as standard error is nothing but the difference between the population mean and the sample mean. So this is how each group we are dealing with, how the sampling is distributed, and we will form a normality distribution, and this is not that much needed for this class. And standard error is nothing but standard deviation of the sampling distribution. So systematic or non-sampling error occurs whether it is a census or it is a sampling. Results solely depend on the manner how we have made our observations, and always it cannot be measured. Sampling error can be measured using standard error, but non-sampling error cannot be measured. So it might be a coverage error or a non-response error or a measurement error. So non-sampling error might be from the field worker side or from the respondent side. As Sir said, it might be an intentional error or unintentional error which is under our control. Intentional error from the field worker side, they might cheat, sit at he will collect, if you want to collect 50, he will collect 10, and 40 he will be writing for the same results, that is manipulating the result. Or otherwise, when he goes to the to respondent, when he goes to the respondent, he might lead with the question. For example, if you people are coming to my home and I wanted to give something, no, you have come to me, but I don't have anything. For example, what I can ask, ungalku coffee venuma? We are as a person, when we say ungalku coffee venuma, அப்படி காஃபி குடிக்கிறீங்களா அப்படி கேட்டா கூட குடிக்கிறேன்னு சொல்வாங்க. பட் காஃபி வேணுமான்னு சொன்னா என்ன சொல்வாங்க? They will tell Venda. So in the mari leading respondent, what answer we wanted to get, we know the tactics how to ask. So in that manner, you should not lead the respondent to tell the answer what you wanted. For example, when you ask question, you wanted an answer yes, you will be asking yes, 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 but you will be saying yes and no options. But you will be nodding here. Even your body language should not disturb the respondent's answer. So you should be as far as possible, be a statue-like man in the VGP Golden Beach. I don't know how many of you know that when you come to Chennai, go to VGP Golden Beach, all the day one man will be dressed up like a Kavalan, and he will be standing in the statue. If you make him smile, then you will be awarded, but he won't smile. I have seen for a long period, whenever I go, I will talk with him. He will not talk, he will not smile, because it is his duty. So you have, like that, you should have your duty when collecting your data. So the main part, broadly sampling techniques is classified into non-probability sampling and probability sampling. What is probability sampling? What is the difference between probability and non-probability? See, suppose when I say that, how about my lecture for the past few minutes, can anyone tell so that I can proceed further if I am asking? Then I am giving equal and independent chance to each and everyone in this hall. And I could see some smiley faces, or I could ask Dr. Pillai sir, because he has brought me here, so he might tell me a good answer. So if I am going to ask, that is going to be a non-probability sample, because I am not going to involve any, I am not giving any equal chance. So under non-probability, we have convenience, quota, judgment, and snowball sampling. Under probability sampling, we have so many, but here in this class, we are going to deal with simple random sampling, stratified, systematic, and cluster sampling. So first we will go with non-probability sampling, a convenience sampling. A patient coming to your OP is a convenience sampling you are going to deal with. My inpatient, only I am going to deal with a research topic. Then it is going to be a convenience sampling. There we cannot generalize. So it is sometimes called as haphazard sample. Judgment sampling is a purposive sampling. You have some purpose for doing a judgment sample. For example, I need to do a research work on HIV infected persons. How can I get the samples? How can I get the samples? HIV infected person. Where I can get more? I have to go to the ART centers where we have the people who receives a drug for HIV. There I have to go, or PPT CT centers where those people who are who have HIV, they will be coming there. So I know my purpose is to deal with HIV patients, so I will be going there. Or if it is going to be a tuberculosis, then where I have to go? I have to go to the DOT center. That is the way I will know where my purpose of research will be solved. There I will go. That is the purposive research. And quota sampling. Quota sampling is like that. You can allot. I will be collecting 100 male, 100 female. Initially, it was being adopted by marketing research. For example, they wanted to know about the newly introduced paste that Colgate with salt. If they wanted to know, so simply they will put a first question as what toothpaste you are going to you are using daily. If they say Pepsodent or some other thing, they won't involve as a sample. But if they say Colgate with salt, then they are going to involve as the sample. So the quota here is Colgate toothpaste with salt. So like that you can keep some quotas and you can collect data for your research. And snowball sampling is nothing but it is a referral sample. How we can find easily the hidden group people using this. For example, in corporation schools, very small age people are using pan, kutka, mava, like that, some disease causing oral disease thing. How they can verify if they go to the schools and tell your corporation children are using these kind of thing. So I wanted to find out who are all using. If I ask, the principal will beat you and send you out. He will not allow. So what you have to do, you have to wait in the front of the school for few in the streets, and you can watch whether some people is giving them this or supplying the mava kutka like thing to the children, or whether how they are getting those materials. You have to find hardly one person. From that person you tell how you got into this habit, who gave this, everything you can ask. He will refer some other person. So it is simply a referral driven sampling. Or you can tell respondent driven sampling. It is only applicable for like here MSM or IDUs you can apply. A systematic form of snowball sampling with unique identification procedure. And it is depends upon the social network of target population. So begin with a small set of identified seeds. That is first I will identify a group. From that group I will be getting some other samples. So for example, the first seed I have identified will be them. From them I will identify 3 more people. From 3 more people, and if you know, if you can Google it and see, the CCPUR IDU network is there in the Google. Those who have the HIV infected area is CCPUR. There how we can go, we have to find many seeds. From that seeds they will be telling this person is might have HIV or not. So here like a case control we can identify those who have infected with HIV and who have not infected. Simply they will refer the persons who are involved in IDUs who are taking IDUs. So from that we can have who is HIV positive or HIV negative. So non-probability method so far I handle. First is convenience sampling, which is relies upon our convenience and access to the population. Judgment sampling relies upon the participant specific characteristics, like it has a purpose to do the research. And quota sampling, we will be having some quota with, to that quota which suits, that alone we will be doing that. And snowball sampling relies upon respondent referrals of others with like characteristics. Any doubts so far? Because we are going to move to probability sampling. Okay, probability sampling is involve a random selection of samples inside the probability samples. First method is simple random sample. Here it is applicable only to a population when it is going to be small homogeneous or readily available, and required number of units might be selected randomly. Each unit of the frame has an equal non-zero probability of selection. And merits easy to implement whenever we have the small group, and whenever we want to have some sampling model, some traditional statistics can also be applied to this method. And demerits, always it needs a complete list of units, and units might be scattered. So what are all the simple random technique methods? One is lottery method, next is random number table, and computer generated random numbers. Even your calculators can generate random numbers. For example, let me take this example. To evaluate the prevalence of hypertension among 1,200 children attending school in the age group of 14 to 17. So I have list of children attending the school, and I can numerate from 1 to 1,200 from the list, and my sample size is 100. I have to choose 100 numbers out of 1,200 numbers. So how many digits is 1,200? 4 digits. So remember that. First, what I am going to do, I am going to write it in a chart, 1 to 1,200, put it in a thing and shuffle over it, and take, when a number comes, suppose it is going to be 20, I am going to take 20 as my sample. Suppose it is 40, I am going to take 40. Similarly, I will go till 100 samples. So what happens in the lottery system? It might sometimes a bias. For example, sir, in the previous lecture he told, if I have 100 rupees and sir has given me 100 rupees to give it to somebody in this hall. What he is told, he will be giving to Pillai sir, then you won't accept. So he made a lottery and does that, and he told 2 times he will write. For me, what I will do, I will give some mark in that particular chit which carries the name of Dr. Pillai sir, and I will put it in a lot. When I am taking back, I will which has a mark, I will take. In our olden days, when we have playing as a children, I don't know how many have played this game. We used to play Raja, Rani, Thiridam, Police, like that one game. We will be shuffling that. One round it will go, second round also it will go, third round, the person who is Raja, she will be the Raja till the end. At the end, we will be fighting all together and we will leave. So that is the bias involved in the lottery system. So what we can do, we have a statistical table of random numbers. Each and every book in the appendix section of a statistics book has table of random numbers. So you can use that for your thing. The same example, let me take it to evaluate the prevalence of hypertension among 1,200 children studying in the school. So 1,200 is a 4 digit. The beauty of the table is you can start from anywhere in the table. You can go column wise or row wise. If you are going column wise till the end, go column wise. If you are going row wise till the end, you have to go to row wise. For example, I am choosing from here. Okay. So can you see that it is 32,063. So last 4 digits you can consider, that is 2063 is the number I am having in the random number table. Can I fix that as a sample? 2063. What? Can I fix that as a sample? No, because my thing is 1 to 1,200. 2063 is not coming under 1,200. Next is last 4 digits, 9,056. So it is not 9,831. No. Next 1,100. Is it within 1,200 or beyond? Yeah. So it is my sample. Similar way, I have to check and select the sample till I reach 100 sample. But this is a modern era where people are not having patience to get the sample. So your computer can generate random numbers for you. For example, if you know your Excel, that spreadsheet, you first open your spreadsheet and click on any blank cell and type in with the capital letters RND, BETWE and RNG between, start a bracket, 1, 1,200, close the bracket on any blank cell. It will give a number. So F9 for refreshing to get a next number. So how many times you have to press F9? No, 99 times, because first time we got a number using the formula. So that is the way, and you feel that also not needed. I cannot carry it in a field work whenever I need a random number. So what I can do, I can have a scientific calculator. In a scientific calculator, you can press shift dot and press, once you press shift dot, it will immediately show you RAN and a hash symbol, and press equal to refresh. You will get a number as in our random number table. Then you can choose a sample from that, from a calculator generated random number. Then next method is systematic random sampling. Here we will be having some procedure, a systematic manner we will be doing a random sampling. For example, I told you a sampling fraction. What is that sampling fraction? Sample size divided by the population size. So that is the interval sampling method which we are going to involve here in systematic random sampling. Suppose my sample size, my population size is 1200. Now my sample size is 60. Where, if I am going to give sampling interval is nothing but population size divided by sample size, which is 20. List of persons 1 to 1200 I have. First, I will choose some simple random technique to choose a number. From that number, I will be selecting the first person. Suppose 8 is my number, 8th person I will be choosing as my first sample. And what is my skip interval? Skip interval is 20. So next is 8 plus 20, that is 28. Next is 28 plus 20, 48, and the next is 48 plus 20. This is the systematic way of doing selecting a sample using skip interval. The advantage, you have to be very careful. Suppose I am going to study about obese persons and I am going to compare them with a normal, and after choosing 10 samples, if I find all are obese, then there is some kind of systematic rhythm is there. So we should avoid systematic random sampling. In that case, if you have taken all 10 are obese, then I should not follow this method. Then stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling is also a method of probability sampling where strata means group. Here there are two ways of collecting sample. One is proportional allocation method or equal allocation method. For example, I want to know epidemiological profile of tuberculosis under 12 years of age. See, whenever we have a proportional allocation method, what we will have, in some areas they might be more prevalent to tuberculosis, some areas they might be less prevalent. So our sample size to be allocated according proportionally. Whenever we don't know the information, then we can allot the method equally. Yeah. So whenever I have a proportion, I know center 1 has 56% of tuberculosis patient, center 2 has 24%, and center 3 has 20%. So I can divide the 120 accordingly. For 56%, I can do 56 by 100 into 120, that is 67. Like that, you can proportionally allocate. If you don't know, then you can allocate 40, 40, 40 in each center. And if you want to do, this is a multiple group comparison. See, suppose I wanted to do research about the children in school, then Chennai zone has 4 zones, educational zones. We have north, south, central, east. From that we have government school as well as private schools, and each school we have girls and boys. When I do a study, always have a practice of having subgroup comparison. One advantage, being a professor or you can produce many papers when there is a possibility of sub-comparison. Out of one result, for example, here I can put a paper on the school children, the comparison between boys and girls, and comparison between government and private, comparison among the zones, and as a whole one paper. Like that, if you plan for a sub-comparison from one study, because we have to undergo ethical committee and so many procedures are there before before going to a research. So at that time you plan for a subgroup comparison. So you can produce so many, one year you will be doing a research and other 3 years you might be producing papers out of that research. That is the way you can do. And cluster sampling is also a group, but here we will not have the information about the list of participants in the sample, but you will be having the information about the population. So advantages is you don't require a sampling frame, and see, you can choose a cluster, randomly select clusters and select the subjects, or randomly select clusters as well as the select subjects randomly. Especially it will be useful for door-to-door personal surveys, and you need a map of the region, distribution of the population as well as age distribution. For example, I wanted to I wanted to know the vaccination coverage in a particular village, and I wanted to do that in a 5 to 12 age group. Then age distribution I know. From the census survey I can know how many persons are there in that particular, that is 3%. For example, if I wanted to do a study, the study in Salem district, it has been clustered as taluks, and you can also choose a naturally occurring clusters. From that you can choose the number. My population size I can get from the census survey, and that is my theoretical population, and from that I have to calculate 3% of the theoretical population, that is 5 to 12 year groups. That is nothing but my study population. My study population now it has become 9,420, and from that I have to frame the cluster using the skip interval. Then how I can draw the household? On the spot I have to go to the center of the taluk, choose a direction at random. How you will choose a direction at random? Spin a pencil or your pen, where the pointer goes, that direction also you can go. It might be looking very, but it avoids bias. For example, I am going to spin a pen or pencil in the center of the village, and if I see that so many boys and girls are playing around, my tender will go that I can go that way. So to avoid that bias, we are going to rotate a pen or pencil. So next is multi-stage sampling. Selection of subjects is done stage by stage. Any one of the sampling schemes can be applied during each stage. You can adopt any methods. Multi-stage sampling generally ends with unequal probability to sampling unit. Analysis procedure becomes more complex. Advantages: no sampling frame of population required, and it is most feasible approach. See, for example, you can select district level household and facility survey, select a district, select a village, select of households. For example, immunization coverage in a state, you can have a district, PHCs and sub-centers you can have as a stage, and you can adopt any one of the sampling techniques. Simple random sampling relies upon simple randomization, and systematic sampling, it deals with your sampling interval. Stratified sampling emphasizes into groups and subgroups. Cluster sampling relies upon geographical or organizational groups. So always you should keep in mind the sampling frame, existence and size of the frame, and you need to consider the cost. If somebody is going to sponsor for our project, we can spend, but if it is going to be from our pocket, we have to need to consider, and the precision design, and also always think of subpopulation comparisons. To summarize, what is population? What is population? A group of people who has a specific characteristics, which is our research question. What is a sample? Subset of population. What is standard error? The difference between the population mean and the sample mean. Types of sampling: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. And non-probability sampling, you have convenience sampling, judgment sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling. And what is probability sampling? Simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic random sampling, and multi-stage sampling. So whenever you don't want to predict anything and randomization is not needed for your study, then and you feel that probability sampling is expensive and this is the first time you are doing research, then go for non-probability samples. And if you want to generalize and read random events are needed for your study and you want to compare the random events, then go for probability sampling. That is the best one. Okay? Probability samples are always best because it deals with uncertainty. Beware of refusals or absentees as do not know questions. Always ensure validity and precision before carrying out your study. If in case of doubt, you can call a experienced person who involved in the research or call for a statistician. Even though I have 4 years of background, you can also approach me. I will help you for your research. Any questions? Any questions?
Two questions are allowed, Dr. Hari. You can have the mic,
See,
sir.
you have to have a review of literature. You should have a review of literature. You should not carry the same number which is used in the review of literature. The outcome measure which you are dealing with that help we will calculate the sample size. Like according to your study design, we can calculate sample size, or according to the statistical methods. Suppose if you are going to use 3 groups, you will be at the final stage you will be using ANOVA. In that angle also we can calculate sample size. So you need not worry in scratching the head for calculating sample size. You can always approach a statistician. Or you can also mail literature, I can calculate sample size and send you. Okay, I think no more questions. Hope you understand the sampling techniques class. Okay. Students, it is impossible to draw a conclusion for the whole population by drawing samples. Okay, they are telling. And still there is some queried faces I could see. And professor explained the whole thing again because always professor is for student. And student told I am not convinced because to irritate the professor. Finally, after 10 or 1,000 times he might get irritated. So what he told, well, so next time when you go for a blood test, ask them to extract all the blood from your body. So a drop of blood can work. Similarly, a sample also can work for the population. Thank you.